Hello and welcome to your guide to your final walkthrough. You've made it all the way almost to closing. Ready for your final walkthrough? And hello, Emily.
Hello.
Emily is going to walk us through the final walkthrough here in a minute. But first, let's get to know Emily a little bit. And Emily, if you were any neighborhood, what would your spirit neighborhood be?
I would be, neighborhood generally in Barcelona. And I picked that one because one, they speak Spanish, which is like a goal of mine just generally in life. I've been trying for many years, haven't quite succeeded to the extent that I would like to, but I'm going to keep trying. So speak Spanish. It's a beach town. Check, check. We're already doing great on that. And then also they wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning. They have dance clubs, food. Every food is a tapa, which is essentially a small snack size portion of food. So you get to eat everything, stay up dancing, sleep in at the beach, speaking Spanish.
Sounds pretty great.
Definitely my kind of city.
Awesome. All right. Well, when you're doing, let's move on to the guide of the final walkthrough. When you're doing your final walkthrough, we've already found the house, we've negotiated, we've gotten through the due diligence, the inspection, the appraisal. We're about to buy the house. What happens at a final walkthrough? What is that like?
Yeah, so a final walkthrough is kind of a mix of a few different things. But what I like to say to my clients is not only are we going here to remind you what it is that you're going to be signing on tomorrow, because at this point it's probably been at least sometimes 2.5, 3 weeks. And so it's been a while since we've been in the home since the inspection. And so you're going in, remembering what it is you're signing on the dotted line for tomorrow, but then you're also looking for anything that may have changed in the home. If we asked for repairs, making sure that those are done, and then making sure that there's just no red flags. You know, a lot can happen when someone's living in a home and you want to make sure that the home you're buying is what you were expecting to buy when you initially went under contract.
Does that ever happen? Do you ever show up and you're surprised by something that is different in the house?
Yes. For like so many reasons. I mean, just thinking like the other day we showed up for a final walkthrough and someone had their TV stand like on the wall. And so we come in and the paint was completely just like the outline of the TV stand. And so of course we call the agent and they're like, oh yeah, when I painted my house way back in the day, I just didn't want to move the TV stand because I was lazy. So then when I moved out, I got the paint and I'm touching it up like I'm doing it when y'all leave. So prime example of something you don't see in a showing, but then all of a sudden everything's gone out of the house and you're like, wait a minute.
Yep. And can you usually get that kind of stuff remedied before the buyers buy the house if there is some sort of issue like that?
Yeah, so in that situation, I mean, we saw the paint out. They had already said that they were going to do that. And so another thing we could have done too is just ask for photos of the finished product to double check to make sure that they are saying, you know, the right thing. So on closing day, you know what you're going to go home to. But then also, you know, if you do find an issue, nothing is set until closing, especially if it's from an amendment that you negotiated after the inspection. So like, let's say they were supposed to fix a broken light that wasn't working and you come and it's not working. Well, contractually, you know, they agreed to do that. And so in order to close and make sure that that happens, you know, they have to hold up their end of the bargain. So you can be like, hey, this isn't working. We had agreed to this. What's your plan on getting this done? And when can we expect it to be done? Are we still closing on this date? And so it kind of sets a timeline, gives you a chance to fix it, and make sure that the buyer is moving into a good house.
I'm sure people watching this are thinking, what if the seller doesn't fix it? I mean, what if the seller's like, no, I said I was going to, but now I'm not. What recourse does the buyer have?
So a few different options. One option could be just to make a new amendment, get money, fix it yourself after you move in. It doesn't have to be a big deal. Like maybe they'll pay you more just because they don't feel like doing the work. And they're like, well, we'll just give you money and you fix it when you move in. So that's an option. But then what you can also do is hold money in escrow. So that is where either the broker or the closing attorney holds money in a certain account. And so there's a lot of verbiage around that. But essentially, like, let's say they were supposed to, I'm thinking of a scenario, they were supposed to fix a furnace and they didn't. So at the closing table, we wrote an amendment that $1,000 would be held in escrow because we already had the quote for how much it was going to cost to fix the furnace. Hold $1,000 in escrow. If the repairs aren't completed by X date, the funds will be dispersed to the buyers. And so it was not completed in X date. And so the funds were dispersed to the buyers and they got it done on their own with the funds that they had reserved from closing. because how that works is when you wire it, then that money is withheld. So if they were going to get 300,000, then they're not going to get all that. Part of that is going to be held aside. And then if they do the work, they get their money.
So that protects the buyer in case the seller doesn't get it done from between the time of the final walkthrough to whenever they're supposed to actually get it done.
Correct. And then also, if something crazy happened and the seller did need more time and you were working with another good agent who maybe, life happens. And so they, maybe they're like, hey, we can still do this. So sorry, the timeline was off. It protects you and still gives them time. So if you don't want to do the work, if that's not your ideal situation, then it still provides an opportunity for them to remedy that and fix it.
Gotcha. What else should people be looking for in the final walkthrough? Is there anything else to really be keeping your eye open for?
I mean, I would just say any repairs, maybe anything that the furniture was hiding beforehand, because once all that's gone, you get to see, the state of the carpet, especially too, if they're here in Atlanta, it rains all the time. And so maybe if it hadn't rained a while and then you see it, and if there are any leaks in the roof or if you're seeing any water damage, I mean, there's a lot of different things that could happen. The good news is if it has been owner occupied, they've been living in the house. So if it has been actively leaking, usually people don't just sit and watch that happen because it's going to damage more stuff than just that. So yeah.
Because this is your final, it's final walkthrough. This is your last chance to see the house before you sign on the dotted line, right?
Right. So if there's any repairs or anything you're seeing that is sticking out to you, now is definitely the time to bring that up.
And so I think this is something that a lot of folks don't know is you don't always get the house at the closing. I mean, you can go to the closing and then immediately get the keys, and you see a lot of pictures of that, but that doesn't happen all the time, does it?
No. So especially in the scenario, let's say there's a family living in the house, and if they're going to buy another house, they're probably going to get that money from the sale of that house. So if they have nowhere to move their furniture to yet, they're going to have to stay in the home post-closing, move everything up, and move into the next home. And if you throw kids into that mix, I mean, you need a lot more than just hours to get all of that together. So typically what you'll see in that scenario is doing a temporary occupancy. So that is a contract. So it's not, just like something that you come up with. It is a binding contract form, and you fill it out. And, there's a few different moving parts to that. So every situation can be different. But typically, just like a standard situation might be you close on a Thursday, and they then have until Sunday morning to move. It doesn't charge them anything extra, but it's written into the contract to where if they stay past X date, then they owe the buyer X amount of money. And usually we try and make that, enough to really discourage people from if you're having a hard time moving, just put a fire under their bottoms there. So it'll be, probably around like $200, $300 on that side. So, and also that will protect the buyers because in the contract form, it says if any damages are done, they're liable for it. And then also, if they do decide to stay, not only do they owe you money, but then they're also trespassing at that point. So it's a little bit easier to get them out.
Yeah, because it's not a lease. I mean, it's not like a lease that's just temporary occupancy after closing, which then, yes, you would be trespassing if you stayed over that time. And I mean, that's interesting because I think a lot of folks, especially if you're buying your first house, you don't think about the seller's situation, but the seller, if they are buying another house and they have to be out at closing, that means all their stuff has to be out in a moving truck before they know for sure that that first house is sold and before they bought the other house, and then they got to move it into the other house. And so that's why the seller a lot of times likes a little bit of that time after closing. So, so Emily, they've gone to the final walkthrough. Everything looks good. What else do people have to do before closing after the final walkthrough? Is there anything else for people to do before they get to the actual closing?
If all goes according to plan and you show up and your repairs are done and the house looks good, the next step, just don't spend all of your money shopping for some furniture and you should be good. Sometimes people get a little too excited and, they're showing me all of the different couches that they want to buy and the new refrigerator. And then that sends everyone to a panic. Lender, myself, everyone, they're like, no, don't buy anything. Not yet. Save it for the celebratory shopping spree after closing. Because, because you're really seeing the home probably about 3 or so days before closing. And that is a very tight time for the lender trying to finalize your numbers, finalizing how much money is in the bank account. And if that just keeps going out of the bank account to your new house.
Don't spend your
purchases.
down payment. Exactly. Don't spend your down payment on furniture, and
Yeah.
definitely don't take out any new loans right before you're
Right.
about to take out the home loan. Yeah.
Exactly.
So all you got to do is
Save it
wire
all
your money and your stuff.
for after closing. Mhm.
Awesome. Well, Emily, this has been super helpful. If you were to give people one either secret or most important tip about the final walkthrough, what would you say is the secret to success for a great final walkthrough?
I think when you're going to the final walkthrough, there's a lot. You're closing soon. You are about to spend all that money soon, and it's a big purchase and a really big deal. And so, one way to just make the final walkthrough go super smooth and easy and have it be an exciting time is to get those receipts of repairs and make sure that the work has been done. So that way, when you're going, you're not stressed and trying to figure out if something is or isn't leaking and if a pipe underground has been fixed, and because that's stressful. You aren't the inspector, you don't know how to fix that. And so just making sure that there has been that communication with the other side, making sure we have all that in order so that when you're walking through, you already have the receipts where you can just be like, yes, I see it, done, great, we know what happened.
Yeah. So the secret is to do your prep beforehand, have all your receipts, know that when you show up, you're walking into a house that's ready to go.
Yep.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Emily, thanks for sharing this info, and thanks for your guide to a final walkthrough. We really appreciate it. And for everyone who's watching, we will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching today.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
All right. See you later.
See ya.